The vehicle inspection is only one part of a three-part test for your CDL drive test. Memorizing this test will be your responsibility. Sage instructors will teach you how it is to be done, but it'll be up to you to practice the vehicle inspection daily. Sage tractor trailers are available each day beginning at 7:30 a.m., then again at 12 noon and after 5 p.m. Remember, practice makes perfect. Use the buddy system and have one of your classmates work with you. You'll be glad you did. Remember, this vehicle inspection is part of the final drive test to obtain your CDL. Do not neglect this very important part of your CDL study. The vehicle inspection consists of thoroughly inspecting certain portions of your vehicle. When you inspect the vehicle, point or touch to the items you intend to inspect and tell the examiner what defects you are looking for. You may inspect the vehicle in any order you wish, but make sure you inspect the engine compartment and all external components. Make sure you do the light check on the vehicle, the engine startup checks, the in-cab inspection, and the brake test. You'll inspect the left side of the vehicle with the exception of items that are only found on the right side. You only need to inspect the first, third, and fourth axle. Section 1. Front of vehicle, fluids, and right side of engine compartment. Walk up to the vehicle. The engine is off, the brakes are set, and the keys are in my pocket. The tractor and trailer are not leaning to the left or right. There are no fluid leaks under the vehicle. Open the hood of the tractor and inspect the right side of the engine compartment. Cover engine-mounted components on the side of the engine on which they are located. Identify if gear or belt driven. The windshield washer fluid is checked in full. Air cleaner is properly attached, working properly, and has been recently serviced. Air intake tubes are properly mounted, clamps are tight, no cracks or leaks. Turbo is properly secured, no oil leaks, clamps are tight. Oil filter is spun on tight with no leaks. The water pump is properly mounted, clamps are tight, no cuts, cracks, or frays in the hoses. The fittings are tight and there are no coolant leaks. Identify whether the pump is gear or belt driven. General appearance of this side of the engine, parts and accessories and hoses, nothing is loose, leaking, or missing. Section 2. The left side of the engine compartment. Move to the left side of the engine. Headlight is properly mounted, no cracked lenses or loose or bare wires. The bumper is secured to the frame, is not cracked, broken, or loose. The radiator is properly mounted, has no cracks or leaks. The fan shroud is secured with no cracks or missing sections. The fan turns freely and has no missing or cracked blades. Belts have no cuts or frays and no more than 3/4 inch deflection. The alternator is properly secured and has no loose or bare wires and is belt driven. Power steering pump is mounted securely. All hoses have no cuts, cracks, or frays. Clamps and fittings are tight with no leaks and it is gear driven. The air compressor and governor are properly mounted. The hose have no cuts, cracks, or frays. The clamps and fittings are tight with no air leaks and the compressor is gear driven. Fuel filters are spun on tight and not leaking. All fuel lines have no cuts, cracks, or frays, clamps, and the fittings are tight with no leaks. Starter and solenoid are properly secured and have no loose or bare wires. Water coolant is checked in full. The engine oil is checked and full. Power steering fluid is checked in full. General appearance on this side of the engine, parts and accessories, and hoses, nothing is loose, leaking, or missing. Section number 3, steering system and suspension system. Steering system. The steering shaft is straight. U-joints are tight and greased. Steering gearbox is properly mounted to the frame with no missing hardware and not leaking. The pitman arm, drag link, upper and lower steering arms, and the tie rod are all straight. They are not cracked and attached with castle nuts and cotter pins. Suspension system. The frame is straight, no cracked welds, and there are no loose or missing hardware as far down as I can see. Front and rear hangers are bolted to the frame with no missing or loose hardware. It is not cracked or bent. The leaf springs are not bent, cracked, or missing and properly secured. The U-bolts are tight with no signs of movement. The shock absorber is properly mounted and not leaking. If the airbags are present, you should say they are not cracked or leaking, properly mounted. The air lines have no cracks or leaks. The axle is straight and not cracked. Section 4. Air system for front drum brakes and disc brakes and front wheel and tire. Air system for front drum brakes. Brake hoses are properly secured, no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaks. Brake canisters are properly mounted, no dents, and the clamps are tight. Slack adjuster is mounted securely to the push rod, and there is at least 1/2 to 1 inch of free play. Brake drums are not cracked or welded, and there is no oil or grease. Brake shoes should have at least 1/4 inch of material remaining and are not cracked, and there is no oil or grease. Air system for front disc brakes. The air line has no cuts, cracks, or frays. Fittings are all tight with no air leaks. The brake canister is attached, not dented or leaking, and the clamp is tight. The rotor is not cracked or warped and has no oil or grease. The brake pads have at least 1/4 inch of pad remaining. They are not cracked and have no oil or grease. Front wheel and tire. The inner and outer wheel seals are not leaking and filled to the proper level. Inner and outer wheels has no cracks, breaks, or welds, or bent flanges, and no rust trails. Inner and outer tire has no abrasions, bubbles, or cuts. Lug nuts are all present, no signs of looseness such as rust trails. Valve stem is straight with a cap. Tire pressure has been checked with a gauge and it is at manufacturer's specification. The top of the tire is wearing evenly with at least 4/32 of an inch tread remaining. Section number 5. Cab section, fuel tank, and sleeper section. Cab section. Grab the mirror. The mirror is firmly attached and no broken glass and is clean. Now open the door. The door opens and closes properly. Hinges are tight. Seal is not torn. Windows roll up and down. There are no obstructions under the pedals. There is a 10 BC fire extinguisher that is properly charged and mounted. Fuel tank. The fuel tank is mounted to the frame with straps. There is a gasket between the strap and the tank. Fuel lines and fittings have no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaks. No leaks under the tank. There is a vented fuel cap with a gasket and it is tight. Steps are mounted securely and not cracked or broken. Sleeper section. The sleeper has no holes or tears in the skin. Inside the door there are 3 warning triangles, spare fuses or breakers, and the door is closed. Section number 6. Between truck and trailer, coupling devices, and rear of tractor. Between truck and trailer, the air tank is mounted to the frame. The lines and fittings have no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaks. The air lines and electrical cord are supported off the deck by a spring. The air lines and fittings have no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaks. Glide hands are attached to the trailer and the O-rings are not torn. Air and electrical lines are attached to the trailer and the tractor. The electrical cord has no cuts or exposed wires. The front wall of the trailer has no holes. The exhaust stack and muffler are straight. The clamps are all tight with no leaks. The heat shield and grab handle are all in place and tight. The lower exhaust and flex tube all the way to the motor are clamped tight with no cracks or leaks. The deck plates and steps are all in place and tight. The battery box and cover are properly attached to the frame. Inside the battery box there are 4 12-volt batteries that are fully charged with no loose or bare wires, and there is no corrosion, and the cell caps are all tight. The driveline is straight, U-joints are tight and greased. Coupling devices. Before I hooked up to the trailer, I inspected the fifth wheel plate for cracks, and it is greased. The fifth wheel assembly is bolted to the frame with no missing or loose hardware. The trailer apron is not bent or cracked, and the kingpin is straight and not cracked. After I hooked up to the trailer, I did a visual inspection from the side. There is no gap between the fifth wheel and the apron. The release handle is in its locked position. If this were a sliding fifth wheel, the locking pins would be in its locked position. Now you'll crawl underneath the tractor and look into the throat of the fifth wheel. There is no gap between the fifth wheel and the apron. The locking jaws are around the shank of the kingpin. Rear of tractor. The frame rails, as far up as I can see, are straight and have no cracked welds. All cross members are in place, and there are no loose or missing hardware. The mud flaps are mounted to the frame, cover the width of the duals, and are no more than 10 inches off the ground. The taillights have no cracked or missing lenses. Section 7. The third axle. I would inspect the following components the same as I did on the previous axle. Axle, U-bolts, suspension hanger, spring, shock. Now inspect the components that are different from the previous axle and include defects. Torque rod, stabilizer bar, and the control arm are not bent or cracked. No loose or missing hardware. The airbags and mounts are properly mounted and not ripped or leaking. Airlines are not cut, cracked, or leaking. Now inspect the brake system. Brake hoses are properly secured, no cuts, cracks, frays, or leaks. Brake canisters are properly mounted, no dents, and the clamps are tight. Slack adjuster is mounted securely to the push rod, and there is 1/2 to 1 inch of free play. Brake drums are not cracked or welded, and there is no oil or grease. Brake shoes have at least 1/4 inch of material remaining and are not cracked, and there is no oil or grease. I would chock the wheels and release the parking brake to check the free play of the slack adjuster. Now inspect the tire and wheel assembly. I would inspect the following components the same as I did before: inner and outer wheel seals, inner and outer wheels, inner and outer tires, lug nuts, valve stem and tire pressure, top of tire wearing evenly with at least 2/32 of an inch tread remaining, no obstructions between the tires, and they are not kissing. Section number 8, the trailer. Cross members, landing gear, and outside appearance. There are no more than 3 bent, broken, or missing cross members. The landing legs are bolted to the trailer with no missing or loose hardware. The landing legs are straight and in full upright position. Both landing pads are in place. The crank handle is stored in its hanger. Step back away from the trailer. Front, top, and bottom clearance lights and reflectors are all present with no broken or missing lens covers. The skin has no holes and is not bulged. The reflective tape runs the full length of the trailer and none is missing or loose. The frame is straight, not cracked, and all hardware is in place and tight. Section number 9, the trailer. Sliding tandems and front trailer axles and wheel assembly. Walk back to the front of the trailer axle. If the trailer has sliding tandems, cover the next 3 items. Sliding frame rail is attached to the trailer and straight with no cracks. Locking pins, front and rear, extend through the rail. Release handle is in its locked position. I would inspect the following components the same as I did on the previous axle: the axle, U-bolts, suspension hanger, springs, stabilizer bar. The equalizer welds are not cracked. All hardware is present and tight, and the unit appears to be working properly. I would inspect the following components the same as I did before. All brake hoses to and from the air tank lines are supported off the ground. The brake canister, slack adjuster and push rod, brake drums, brake shoes. I would chock the wheels and release the parking brake to check the free play of the slack adjuster. The air tank is properly mounted and not cracked or leaking. Now inspect the tire and wheel assembly. I would inspect the following components the same as I did before: inner and outer wheel seals, inner and outer wheels, inner and outer tires, lug nuts, valve stem and tire pressure. Top of the tire is wearing evenly with at least 4/32 of an inch tread remaining. No obstructions between the tires, and they are not kissing. Section number 10, the trailer. Back of the trailer and trailer doors. Walk to the back of the trailer. ABS light is not broken or missing if it is equipped so. Top clearance lights, tail lights, and reflectors are all present with no broken or missing lens cover. Reflective tape is present across the width of the trailer. Bumper is properly mounted to the trailer with no broken welds and is straight. Both mud flaps are secured to the trailer. They cover the width of the duals and are no more than 10 inches off the ground. If the trailer has a swing door, door tie and holder are in place. Door hinges and latches are tight, not broken, and all hardware is present and tight. If the trailer has a roll door, door is all the way down, latches are tight, not broken, and all hardware is present and tight. Door opens and closes and seals properly. Now step to the right side of the trailer and say, I would inspect this side of the vehicle in the same way. If there is a door on the right side of the trailer, door hinges and latches are not broken and no missing hardware. Door tie and tie holder are in place. Grab handle is tight. Steps are mounted to the trailer and are not broken. Door opens and closes and seals. If you're in Wyoming, inspect the spare tire carrier. Section 11, light check. Walk up to the front of the truck and close and secure the hood. The examiner will stand outside the truck during the light check and let you know that the lights are working. Start with the tractor, then do the trailer. Turn key to the on position and turn on all light switches. Headlights and upper and lower clearance lights are on. High beams are on and indicator works. Left turn signal is on and indicator works. Right turn signal is on and indicator works. Four-way flashers are on and indicator works. Ask the examiner to walk to the rear of the trailer and check the following. Clearance lights on the side of the tractor, front and side of the trailer. Tail and clearance lights, left turn signal, right turn signal, brake lights, four-way flashers. The examiner will then sit in the cab for the rest of the inspection. Section 12, the engine startup check. Demonstrate the safe startup procedure. Parking brake is on, transmission is in neutral, clutch is in, and say, when I turn the key to the on position, the ABS warning light will come on and then go out. Then say, when I start the engine, the oil pressure should stabilize within 5 seconds, or I will shut the engine off. Start the engine while pointing to the oil pressure gauge. Tell the examiner that the oil pressure did stabilize. Water temperature will stabilize between 180 and 200 degrees. The tachometer is working, then tap the accelerator pedal. Voltmeter reads between 12 and 14 volts. Fuel gauge appears to be working. Primary and secondary air systems will stabilize between 100 and 125 psi. All warning lights went out after the engine was started. Section number 13, the in-cab inspection. Both visors are present and working. Windshield and side windows are not cracked or broken. Windshield wipers and washers work. Wiper blades are not torn. There are no obstructions on the dash. Heater and defroster work. Demonstrate. Steering wheel has no more than 10 degrees of free play. City and air horns work. Mirrors are adjusted just for me. Seatbelt is mounted at 3 points, latches properly, and is not torn or cut. Clutch pedal has 1 to 2 inches of free play and goes to the floor. Tap on the brake pedal. The brake pedal works. Tap on the accelerator pedal. The accelerator pedal works. Shifter boot is not torn, airline is not leaking, and the transmission goes into gear. Demonstrate. Section number 14, the brake test. The brake test has 6 total steps, 3 with the engine running and 3 with the engine off. Number 1, check the tractor parking brake. Pull parking brake out and push trailer air supply in. Tug against the tractor parking brake in low gear. Make sure that the brake will hold firmly. Number 2, check the trailer spring brakes. Pull trailer air supply out and push parking brake in. Tug against the trailer spring brakes in low gear and make sure the brakes hold firmly. Number 3, put the truck in low gear and do a rolling brake test at 5 miles an hour. The truck should come to a firm stop without pulling to the left or right. Shut the engine off. When the engine dies, turn the key back to the on position. Release both the tractor parking brake and the trailer spring brakes by pushing the valves in. Steps 4 through 6 must be completed in order. Number 4, apply service brakes to 90 psi. According to the federal regulations, the engine off and the brakes on, a combination vehicle cannot lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. Number 5, test the low pressure warning device. Fan the brakes on and off until the low pressure warning device activates. It must come on before the air pressure drops below 60 psi. Number 6, test the emergency brakes. Continue fanning brakes on and off until emergency brakes activate. This should happen between 20 and 45 psi. Both brake valves must pop out.